positive, we decided we would keep the lights up all year round. And we also committed to a 3-year contract to keep those lights. They are maintained by the company. If we have an issue, they come out within 24 hours, they maintain them, and we're good to go. So we partnered with the Chamber for 2 events. In October 2019, we had the Bustle, very, very successful Bustle on Russell. Lots of fun, hoping maybe someday that will be able to be reenacted. But in November to December, we partnered again with them in 2020 to do this Miss Falls local subscription box. It ran for 4 months, from November to February. All of the merchandise inside the box came from local merchants. 435 boxes were sold over those 4 months, and that resulted in $30,000 in sales in our downtown. That program was also recognized in 2021 with an award by the Economic Developers Council of Ontario. As part of our budget and our spending, we have a memorandum of understanding with the town. We contribute $10,000 towards the summer greenery in our downtown core, the flowers, the planters, the hanging baskets. We have in the past purchased benches and garbage receptacles, which we, since construction, we have reallocated to side streets to help merchants on the side streets. We also contribute $3,000 annually to the maintenance of the downtown streets in the summer. When the construction completed, we thought it was important to have new banners created and purchased. To add to the beauty of our already beautiful downtown. We had 3 seasonal banners designed and purchased. We also have spent over $3,000 both in 2019 and 2020 for winter greenery to help beautify the downtown or the winter months. The Downtown Dollars program, it was a program that had taken a bit of a hiatus, and in 2019 we decided as a board to start it back up again. The Downtown Dollars are essentially gift certificates. They can be redeemed at all participating merchants or businesses in our downtown core. They are considered as cash to the business owners. Currently, we have had $10,000 cleared through our accounts. So we've had $10,000 of those downtown dollars cashed and utilized. We have outstanding another $5,000 that still haven't been utilized yet by the purchasers or winners of the downtown dollars. And we have recently, in the month of December, distributed another $5,000. So in total, from 2019-2020, we have distributed $20,000 worth of downtown dollars. They can be utilized. We utilize them in promotions. I know other departments in the town have purchased them for gifts, recognition, that sort of thing, or other promotions that they have. And also residents can buy them as gifts. And all of the money since they're being utilized at downtown businesses, the money is staying in our downtown. So I'm at the point of the budget. As you know, we were going to request a levy increase, but we recently found out that some members have started a petition to stop the request for the levy increase. I have not specifically been contacted by any business owner downtown with any concerns over the budget or the levy increase. I did reach out to a number of business owners that I know on Friday. I had some refuse to speak to me, and I had some that did speak to me. We did talk about their concerns and why they didn't want the levy increase to go forward. And I took that information away, and our board reconvened, and we decided we wouldn't go forward with the levy increase at this time. And I was prepared to present a scaled back budget. We had intended to hire a full-time coordinator, and we were also prepared going into the levy increase requests that if we didn't receive it, it was very important, even if we didn't receive it, that we have a full-time coordinator so that we can move forward properly, because we've had so much turnover of part-time staff that people are looking for full-time jobs. We can't keep them, and we're constantly restarting, and we can't get momentum. So I was going to present this budget. However, we did also find out that there is a second petition requesting a vote to disband the DBA. So those petitions and the actions of, or lack of actions of our membership has caused 2 board members to resign effective tomorrow, which will leave the DBA in a position where they don't have enough members required to keep the board going. So at this time, I would ask or recommend that the town possibly start that procedure to start a vote to see if the membership actually do want to disband the DBA and go forward at that point. Thank you. That's my presentation.
Thank you, Karen. I know this last few days has been, as I am also on that committee, I know this last few days since Friday has been disconcerting would be an understatement. And so I know that we want to make some time for questions from the floor. So if you would just hang on there. So do we have comments, questions from I saw Mayor Panko's hand first, and then Councillor McKenna, and then Councillor McGuire.
Thank you. And thanks, Karen, for coming forward today and for your effort and all you do for the DBA and our downtown businesses. And you go through the list, and I think there's some incredible value that the DBA has brought and will continue to bring to the downtown, I hope. And from the Great Excavate, I mean, that was a very complex, challenging time that I think went extremely well and would not have gone as well as it had without the support of the DBA and that ongoing communication and keeping up the spirits of your membership and all the effort that was completed there. And of course, the support through the pandemic. Very difficult times. We go back to March of 2020 and the shutdown, and business is not able to function, and everything your team did to ensure that there was some degree of support and making sure there's PPE in place and coming up with every idea possible to make sure that there is some financial support as well. So incredible work. And the lights downtown, a great addition. I've had so many comments as well about the lights around the poles and how positive that has been. So, I mean, there's nothing but positive I see in very difficult times. And I did receive a copy of a petition today, or 2 petitions, I guess I should say. And I guess I would just caution the DBA that to do further investigation into maybe what the membership is seeking. I certainly do not support the disbanding of the DBA. And if there's a small group of downtown businesses who believe that's the direction they want to go, it may represent a very small minority. And sometimes people get fired up over certain things without maybe completely understanding the question they're being posed and sign something that perhaps they don't even understand exactly what they're signing. And so I'm distraught that 2 members have chosen to resign over this. That's extremely disappointing. I think we would love to see them stay on and DBA continue to function as it has. And sometimes it's difficult to do things that may not be popular, but sometimes they're the important thing to do and the right thing to do. And I appreciate in my corner of the world here in a town hall, I've seen DBA coordinator after coordinator come and go. And unfortunately, I think there's part of that challenge is having a part-time coordinator and not being able to offer someone a full-time position. And so I credit the DBA with making a decision to go ahead and hire a full-time position and to fund a full-time position. And I guess my understanding, maybe I'm wrong, but I guess it would be you're going to cut from other areas of your budget if you don't have a levy increase in order to maintain a full-time coordinator. And that means you're taking money away from the things that you would like to do, especially as we emerge from the pandemic. So the levy has an increase in 12 years. I can appreciate it was a large levy increase at one point in time. So it's not unusual to see some degree of pushback, but I'm not sure how widespread the pushback is, and even if people who are concerned about it truly understand the impact and the cost, even on a small business, when I recognize that the most valuable properties in the downtown are large national corporations that will one do you work for that will continue to pay their share regardless of what is being charged. So I don't know if I have any questions. I think you've done such a great job today, other than I think might express my confidence in the DBA board and my desire that they're able to continue operating the way they have. And perhaps, and council does not have to make a decision on any levy increase or change until we set the budget, which won't be until sometime in January. So perhaps there's a time to go back and maybe have some conversations with your membership and articulate the value that this change in levy means, whether it's what was proposed or something different. But I think not every business benefits from the work of the DBA. I mean, that's probably clear. So there may be some resistance from people who may not perceive a benefit, but in the situation, the benefit is what benefits the entire downtown. A healthy downtown is important, and to have a healthy downtown, we need a healthy DBA.
Thank you, Councillor McKenna, and then Councillor McGuire, and then Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just thank you very much, Karen. That was an excellent summary of the work of the last couple of years. The DBA should be very proud of the efforts. I don't want to comment on the petitions because we haven't had really any time to even consider what they may or may not mean. I just wanted to focus on the very successful 2 years that you've just presented to us and congratulate all of the volunteers who made that happen. And so I just wanted to thank you and say a job well done to you and your team.
Thank you.
Councillor McGuire.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks a lot for coming tonight, Karen. It's hard to follow up the mayor and Councillor McKenna, so I won't try. But yeah, just thanks for everything you're doing. Things like the sleigh at the library, I had no idea that was the DBA's effort. And so it's really been noticeable what's going on downtown. And thank you for participating in our CIP committee. I know personally it can be a challenging one, but you've really committed to your role serving the DBA and serving the town. So thank you.
Thank you.
And Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, and thanks, Karen. And obviously, DBA has done great work the last 2 years. I'm not going to get into a debate about a levy increase or anything like that, because I've been on the phone all day with business owners actually, and but you know, this should come back to the committee for discussion in due course. But there's no doubting the work that you've done over some very tough times. Whether more is needed, that's up for discussion, and the business owners of Smith Falls should be the voice of what they want. So I'm looking forward to talking to them, and then we'll talk about it at a later date. But thanks for the presentation.
Yeah.
Councillor Allen, and then Councillor Dwyer.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Karen, I can just agree with my colleagues. It was an excellent presentation. I read it over, and the DBA is something, an area that I love to be in. It's hardly a day goes by that I'm not out walking and enjoying the stores and the people that I meet in that area. And the DBA has, in my view, been a big part of the revitalization of our downtown, streetscape, and you do wonderful work. And again, like my colleagues, I certainly don't want to see that organization disband. I've been here 11 years and I've had different roles with the Healthy Living Festival. Everyone downtown embraced that, wonderful event, and the town was just alive with people, and the people that were visiting our downtown often commented on what great restaurants and stores we have, and how friendly our people are. And that's a tribute to all of you. And yeah, so I look forward to it coming back again. And thank you for your presentation and for your hard work.
Thank you.
Councillor Dwyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just closing remarks. I'm so grateful for everything the BIA does. I really do. It's not lost on me that it is a very, very hard gig, especially during part-time hours. I think if there has been one constant in the 12 years I've lived in this community, it is feuds within the board, and I'm very aware, as I think we all are, of the personalities that are involved in that. But I think what you have been able to so successfully do over the last 2 years during the pandemic shows what a strong will there is in the community to continue to push through. And I think there's such value in having the BIA in place for the coming year as, we start to open back up as part of the pandemic, but also now that the construction is done and we can start making some really long-term material changes to the downtown with our businesses and support them and kind of finding that new life. I think that's where the BIA leadership can really bolster the success of downtown. So thank you for all you do. Like my colleagues, I'm not prepared to pass any vote tonight about anything to do with the BIA, but it's good information to have, and we look forward to discussing it again in the new year.
Thank you, everyone. I do have a comment or two myself, and that is that I've had the pleasure of working with Karen on the DBA for the past 3 years. I've been witness to her efforts and the efforts of other volunteers who are also business owners who are trying to find their way through a very difficult time, but stuck with it. I also know how enthusiastic Karen and some of our new board members were about putting in place the strategic plan that was adopted by the board. And that now with Beckwith Street finished, we could dedicate more time and more resources to folding in the side streets that are within the DBA territory. So I will stop there. As the DBA is a product of legislation, provincial legislation, and a creature of council, it would appear from comments that there is no wish to move that to a priority item tonight. So do I see consensus to the future of the DBA? It now lies with council, in my opinion, and so that would be added to a future COW early in January, I would imagine. As someone mentioned, there are already balls in the air, grants, the construction of phase 2 coming up. So there is some urgency to decide or determine what the future of the DBA is. So did I see consensus to bring this to a priority item? Yes. Yes, not tonight, but early in the new year. Okay. Yes. Oh, sorry. I didn't know if you were voting for it, Councilor McKenna, or you, okay. Did you have a comment?
Yes, Madam Chair. I don't know if my colleagues, I'm turning to CEO Morrison. If we are going to have this as a discussion in the new year, I wonder if the staff could provide us with some background and some further detail. Council's not neutral, but we're certainly, as you mentioned, it's the structure is it fits and reports to council. So I'm not sure exactly what staff could do. Maybe get to the bottom of this and the petitions and see if there's a way forward in the new year that might inform a discussion at a future COW.
Yes, CEO Morris.
Yeah, through the chair. So at this point, staff haven't received a petition or any kind of formal, notice. So so there's nothing to act on at this point. But we could certainly provide some background on the architecture and the structure of a DBA within the Municipal Act, and that might lend some insight into how they're governed. It's considered a local board within the Municipal Act. So we could provide some background to kind of orient a committee in terms of the structure of a DBA, and some of the decision-making elements that go along with creating a downtown business association local board. So yes, we'll bring that forward in January.
Thank you. And thank you, Karen, for coming tonight. I know you've had a rough weekend, but now you can rest. And again, I only can add to what my colleagues have said in terms of our appreciation for the hard work that and enthusiasm, and you really are one of the best ambassadors for a DBA that I've seen. So I'll let you go, and I'm sure I'll be talking to you. But as for tonight, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you. I wish you all a happy holiday.
Merry Christmas. Thank you. And now we'll move to, can I have a motion to adopt the minutes of December 6th and December 13th Committee of the Whole meetings? Councillor Dwyer, seconded by Councillor McKenna. All those in favor? Thank you. And CAO Morris, there are some reports this evening.
Yes, Madam Chair, we have two, and we'll start with Chief Cheeseborough.
Good evening. Thank you. I've got 4 reports for you tonight. 3 of them are fairly quick. The first one is regarding our emergency control group meeting that was held last Thursday. Dr. Stewart and Kim McCann from the health unit were present. Dr. Stewart provided information regarding the provincial healthcare providers met earlier in the week to discuss the impacts of the Omicron variant. The strain is highly transmissible and mutates rapidly. 85 to 90% of Ontario eligible population has been vaccinated. The healthcare professionals indicated that having 2 doses provides good protection against the variant. However, the 3rd booster adds the additional level of protection, especially for the vulnerable population over 50. The wait times has now been reduced from 6 months to 3 months for the booster shot. And the health unit is focusing its efforts related to the booster shot for the 50 plus, as the case rates in this area seem to be rising. However, anyone 18 and over is now eligible for the booster shot. Those individuals seeking the Johnson & Johnson vaccine must contact their healthcare provider to obtain the vaccine, as there's limited supply, and they must secure 6 individuals at their healthcare provider, as it comes in a 6-dose vial. The province has updated the guidelines limiting the facilities with over 1,000 capacity to 50%. And we know as a result of the recent announcements over the weekend, that has changed substantially. The rapid antigen tests have been provided to schools and students, as well as the high traffic LCBOs in Ontario, along with major provincial employers to distribute to their employees. Dr. Stewart mentioned the rapid testing can be a measure of precaution and testing method, but only if it's completed in a regimented and controlled manner, noting testing 3 times per week is the most effective manner to test for the virus, as it is detected between the 1st and 3rd day of gestation. She also noted that the health unit has been very thankful to the Smith Falls Clinic at the community center. Our report as of last Thursday, our numbers had increased to 149 active cases. And I can tell you as of today, that has risen to 168. We had 3 in hospital, 1 in ICU, and the death rate remains at 65, along with the 2 school closures. Our neighbor to the south at Kingston, Frontenac, Lennox, and Addington had reported 1,186 cases. As of today, that has increased to 1,574. They have 28 in hospital, 13 in the ICU, and 9 on ventilators. There will be additional restrictions that they have imposed with regards to limiting 4 people per table in restaurants, reducing the service of alcohol to 10 p.m., and the home gatherings is now dropped from 10 to 5. Across Ontario, there's 1,882 active cases as of last Thursday. The case count today, we can add 3,784 more to that. So we're closing in on the 4,000 case per day. Canada is at 1.85 million with 30,000 deaths. Our discussion on Thursday, we discussed the vaccination policy. Management has also updated the work safety plan. The province recently changed the requirement of the self-screening, and all workers are required to self-screen prior to entering the workplace. We will be implementing this process for employees to self-screen. In the previous meeting, we also discussed the ability to safely protect against the spread of COVID with using the cloth masks. In a discussion with the health unit, the cloth mask is still acceptable, provided that it is washed daily and you do a breathable test on it to ensure that your breath cannot penetrate through the mask. We also discussed working from home measures. Some organizations are considering that. We discussed the possibility of closing the town facilities as some surrounding jurisdictions have initiated that. At this time, it was felt that in those positions, we are going to remain as we are today. We'll continue to monitor over the next week and into the new year. The province announced the QR code screening as of January 4th will be the exclusive method in which businesses and organizations are to use for vaccination verification. The community center over the last few months has assisted users in printing over 600 QR code passports. The arena is equipped with scanners, and the staff will be implementing this method in line with the provincial guidelines in the new year. This will be the first communication. There will be communication going out to the public tomorrow, well in advance, to advise that that is the only method that will be accepted. Also, the last item is the state of emergency will continue to remain in place and will be reassessed in the new year at our next control group meeting. And on that note, I wanted to advise council that we have completed all the documentation for our 2021 compliance. That has been submitted to our field officer, has been reviewed, and at this point in time, it's been forwarded on to her management team. But we have met all the criteria with regards to our annual compliance, and the mayor will be receiving a letter on that in the new year. That is my first update.
Thank you, Chief. Theo Morris.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I believe the chief has 2 or 3 more small items.
Oh, good, because I thought he left out a really important one that I attended last week. So go ahead, Chief.
Thank you. Madam Chair, through you, we contacted the Smith Falls Hospital CEO with regards to the testing facility. We had received a couple calls that people were not able to get in and get tested for COVID, and there were some people going to Brockville and to Kemptville. He has confirmed that the hours of operation are Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. till 2 p.m. They're closed Saturday, but open again on Sunday from 8 till noon. He also advised that Brockville is Monday to Friday, 10 to 5. Elmont, Monday to Sunday, 10 to 3. Kemptville is Sunday to Friday from 8 o'clock till noon. He's also indicated that there are hours, or additional hours that are built in, and additional staff should the need arise for additional to double up on the appointments. That is my second and the final one, Madam Chair and Council. I was extremely privileged and honored last Wednesday night to have the members of the fire department attend the fire hall to present some academic awards as well as some long service awards. Councillor Alford was in attendance to represent your worship. As well, Director Costello was there on behalf of the corporation. It was at times an emotional night. It was an awards service that was long overdue and certainly well deserving. On the academic side, Lieutenant Fleming received his Life Safety Educator 1 and his Public Information Certificate. Firefighter Bizanet received his Life Safety Educator 1. Lieutenant Smith received his Public Information Officer certificate, and Hogan Fitzgerald received his Public Information Officer certificate. On behalf of the Fire Marshal of Ontario, I was extremely pleased to represent the Fire Marshal and present to Firefighter Bizanet and to Lieutenant Jason Smith their 25-year certificate and medal for the fire service. I was extremely excited also to present service bars to Firefighter Barry Stanzel on his 30 years with the Smith Falls Fire Department, and to Lieutenant Randy Normandin, who achieved his 35-year and his 40-year provincial bars. Just exceptional individuals and certainly worthy of the awards night. And again, thank you to Councillor Alford and to the rest of council. That is my update.
Thank you, Chief. CO Morris, anyone else?
Yes. So the next is Deputy Clerk Bennett with a few reminders.
Good evening. I'm just here to remind everyone that next week's council meeting is canceled. And we will be canceling the January 4th meeting of council. So all council meetings will resume on Monday, January 10th. And in addition to that, just a reminder, there will be a messaging out tomorrow with respect to the holiday hours at the town hall. So we are closed on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve at 12 noon, as well as the town hall will be closed on December 27th, December 28th, and January 3rd. So that messaging will also be shared on all social media outlets.
Thank you, Deputy Clerk Bennett. Anything else from staff? CO Morris?
No, Madam Chair, that's it for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There are no correspondence items this evening. We do need to move into in camera, but I think it will be very brief. So can I have a motion that Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls, as provided in section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001, as amended, moved into a closed session to adopt in-camera meetings? A mover, it would be Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Dwyer. All those in favor? Thank you. And we'll let Deputy Clerk Bennett move us around
Okay, and they're just moving us in here.
Okay, and if Councillor Brennan, I just have your screen on here.
I'm going to the washroom.
Councillor Brennan, we're just still live streaming, so we can proceed with the back to open session now, if you like, Madam Chair.
Yes, please. Okay, we're live. Nadine, yes?
We are now live, yes.
So the
Jesus
Rising
fucking
report
Christ.
is that council adopted the in-camera minutes from both 2020 and 2021. And so now we'll move to priority issues. 8.1 is the Railway Museum of Eastern Ontario grant request, and that is, I believe, with Director Costello is not here this evening, so I believe that CO Morris is taking that one on.
Yes, that is correct. Thank you, Madam Chair. So we are now in possession of a application through the Community Grants Program from the Railway Museum of Eastern Ontario. We had an earlier application that was found to be incomplete, so we worked with the folks at the museum and the board directly, and just recently received a completed application that the review committee felt was appropriate for funding. The amount requested is $20,000, and the sole purpose of the funding is to support the creation of a strategic plan for the organization, and that's something that staff has been working with the board to encourage for some time. So that is the intent of the Railway Museum Board, and again, we reviewed the application. We felt it met the criteria for the Community Grants Program, and we're recommending approval of it this evening. I would note that we do have a balance in that budget. So if this is approved, we would have a remaining balance of just shy of $30,000 in that account. So there are sufficient monies in the budget to accommodate the recommendation being made this evening.
Thank you. And any questions, or is there consensus? Okay, thumbs up. Everybody thumbs up on this one. Thank you very much. Please proceed with it, CO Morris. Next, the transfer payment agreement for the town's square report, and that is with Director Manhire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tonight, just some good news that we've received a grant for $750,000 to help offset costs for the redevelopment of our town square. So what we're looking for this evening is for the council to authorize mayor and clerk to enter into a transfer payment agreement, which is essentially just that piece that allows us to receive the money from the funder. With the Canadian Community Revitalization Fund, which is a CCRF fund. The details are in the report, but essentially the project is going to be offset in our end, which is 25% of the funding, through the ISIP fund, ISIP grant that we received earlier this year, as well as a community donation. So the end result is that this project can be completed without taxpayer dollars.
Thank you. Well, I can't see anyone having an objection to that, but I will go to look at the screen if we've got, did you have questions, Councillor McGuire and Councillor Allen?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, Director Manhire. I'm wondering, when it says the design work and elevations are being completed and are expected to be available in January, will we have a chance to see those, or will those come to council before they go to tender?
Madam Chair, those are they're the result of feedback received from the Municipal Heritage Committee and Council. So we can certainly bring that back to council for final review. We are going to be acting as our own kind of general manager or general contractor on this, so there will be, I believe, up to 6 different tenders that will be issued in the new year for this. So we can certainly bring it back for confirmation.
Great. And with the work to be completed before February 2023, when do we expect the work to be completed right now?
Madam Chair, the project timeline that we have right now is that we hope to have the work completed by fall of 2022. The reason for that is because the term needs to be completed by February, but the last component of it is going to be some of the landscaping pieces, which will have to be done before the ground freezes up next year.
Again, and Councillor Allen, did you have a question?
Yeah, my question was the completion date now is February 14th, 2023. Is there a reason why it's going to take that long?
Madam Chair, that's just the date for the end of the funding. So the funder has indicated that we need to have the job complete by then. But as indicated, we're hoping to have the job completed by the time the end of next fall.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor McKenna?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess to state the obvious, this is great news. Well done on the grant application and on the success in receiving it. It's delightful news, a nice way to end the year on the town square. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? No, then I would see a show of hands to move forward with this. And we have that. So Director Manhar, please proceed. Thank you. Next on the agenda is with our Treasurer Kozil for the November Budget Monitoring Report. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm here this evening to provide Council with a high-level update after completing November budget monitoring. As indicated in my report, I'm currently projecting an overall surplus of about 1.7 million, which is a substantial increase from when I last presented in September. The majority of that is tax supported at 1.5 million. The water and the wastewater are just shy of 100,000 surplus each. So for the net impact of the multi-year supplemental billings is the reason for these increase from September to now. And it was across all classifications, industrial, commercial, and residential, and partially due to some delay because of the pandemic. So I wanted to bring this forward and kind of highlight one of the comments in my report. As per our reserve management policy, our year-end surpluses are transferred to the various rate stabilization and capital reserves at a ratio of 50-50. But it's important to note that the tax supported rate stabilization reserve is currently nearing its target balance, which is based on 20% of the taxation revenue for 2021. Therefore, the majority of the surplus that I've denoted will be transferred to the capital reserve, which is estimated to be 1.4 million at this point in time. So with that, if you had any questions.
And are there any questions? Again, another good news story. Yes, Mayor Panko.
Yeah, I think great news story. Very encouraging, and looking through it, obviously there's not a single contributor. It's I guess a lot of maybe not modest savings, but decent savings from a variety of from across the spectrum within the town. And obviously the biggest contributor being new taxation. And I just no questions, Jen. I don't think, other than so the rate stabilization reserve will hit its cap. We will have another 1.4 million roughly to add to our capital reserves, and with that contribution, I guess I assume we are at least on track, if not ahead of our target reserve balances in our long-term financial plan, other than water and wastewater, I assume.
Through the chair, all of our capital reserves, the ending balances for 2022, we have met with the water and the wastewater. As noted in the last 2022 budget presentation, I had depleted that in order to bring forward the capital budget But this obviously is going to bring that back. The forecasted reserve balance was 267,000. So this will well take care of that and bring us forward, and then some.
Thank you. So all I ask, I guess, committee tonight, and not for any discussion tonight, but when we resume our budget discussions in January, I think we're potentially looking at obviously a different scenario than what we had experienced last week with regards to a potential rate increase for 2022, and perhaps just a consideration of the holidays and before our next budget meeting, that with this additional amount going into reserves, perhaps we could bypass a 2% increase, knowing that what's going into reserves is considerably higher than what that 2% would do. So not for discussion, but just throwing it out there.
Thank you. Any other questions for Treasurer Kozeel? I'm sure we will be discussing it at our next round of budget. But thank you, Treasurer Kozeel, for sharing another good news story with us tonight. It's heartening to all of us to be ending the year in that way. Thank you. Next, we have the official plan and zoning bylaw amendments report, and that's with Senior Planner Granke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening. Staff are bringing forward for Council's approval draft zoning and official plan policy amendments to accommodate additional residential units in more circumstances than we allow presently. As Council is aware, the Ontario Planning Act was recently updated to require municipalities to include policies within OPs and zoning bylaws to allow an additional residential unit within single detached, semi-detached, and row house dwelling units, as well as in an ancillary structure on the lot. And that could be in a detached garage or backyard outbuilding. Our current zoning bylaw and official plan were written in accordance with the Planning Act requirements at the time they were written. However, with Bill 108, they are now out of date. It's important to note that adopting OP and zoning policies allowing this is not discretionary. We do need to have these policies in place. And since it is a requirement, the Planning Act also shelters these from appeals. Municipalities do, however, have the ability to establish reasonable regulations to ensure that municipal infrastructure services are not exceeded and that the overall character is maintained as best as possible. And it's certainly fair to say that whatever policies we do adopt, it may not be practical in all instances to accommodate, especially the ancillary structures. In addition to the statutory Planning Act requirements to allow for additional residential units, the Housing Task Force, which was approved by the housing report, which was approved by Council almost exactly a year ago, had identified this as a high impact priority in order to make it easier for property owners to create more affordable rental supply within the existing building stock. And that was identified as one of the deliverables when we issued the RFP for the zoning review earlier this year. This past summer, the Housing Advisory Committee asked that additional residential unit permissions be fast-tracked in order to get that important housing option available earlier. Staff were accordingly directed to do this, and we worked with our zoning consultants, WSP, to implement this work. We'd worked out with them a modified scope of the work plan that allowed for this important item to be facilitated alongside the regular consultation being undertaken, and staff and the consultants especially relied on feedback from the public at our zoning issues workshop to highlight some of the community feedback and give some direction in terms of what the draft policy could look like. The proposed OP policies effectively create the enabling policy and update the terminology to reflect current Planning Act language, namely replacing accessory dwelling with additional residential unit. The regulatory provisions, the meat and potatoes, if you will, are in the implementing zoning bylaw. And that's where we regulate the use of land, landscaped open space, built form, massing, and building location. Just give me a moment here. The policy that's presented to Council this evening was considered by the Planning Committee at a statutory public meeting on November 18th, and again on December 9th to consider some modifications that came through the PAC discussion. In addition to our statutory notification requirements, notice was posted on the municipal website and twice on social media, and the draft policy was also reviewed by the Housing Advisory Committee with no concerns noted by the committee. The report details the specifics of the proposed policy, including proposed new definitions for additional residential units, as well as size and location requirements to clearly differentiate the main and the accessory unit and accommodate as best as possible within the local neighborhood context. The bylaw does not propose minimum dwelling size requirements for the additional unit and instead tags the requirement to the Ontario Building Code. At this point, I'd like to thank our zoning consultants at WSP for their work and experience in guiding this work, as well as the work, direction, and conversation from the Planning Advisory Committee and Housing Advisory Committee, and feedback from the town's public works and building departments. The draft bylaws are appended to this report, and if council is ready, they can be approved this evening. As the Planning Act shelters additional residential unit policies from appeal, the proposed policies would take effect upon council's passing. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Grenke. Are there any questions for Mr. Grenke regarding this? Councillor McKenna.
Thank you. And thanks, Mr. Grenke. I'm supporting the staff recommendation tonight. And I think you've answered my question is, under the Planning Act, does an amendment to the official plan have to go on to the province for approval? Or I think you've just said it could be, if council approves it later tonight, it could be official right today and be implemented by the residents of Smith Falls starting in January. Is that correct?
That's correct, Councillor.
Thank you.
Mayor Panko?
No, thanks, Carl. This is great to see it come to this point. I think you probably have good support tonight. We have discussed in the past the development of a guide that could be available to our residents. And we obviously see this as an opportunity for homeowners or potential homeowners to create more affordability, to help them buy a home or afford to keep a home, plus the ability to create more maybe affordable rental units in town. So I think we see the Housing Advisory Committee sees great benefit here, and just wondering, Carl, if there's been any effort towards development of a user guide and a way of helping our citizens go down this road in a very easy to understand fashion.
Yes, Mr. Grenke.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, excellent question. I believe that the publication of supporting and promotional documents are one of the other deliverables established in the housing report, and certainly once this policy takes effect, then I think it's in all of our interests that we make sure that the public is aware of it. So we haven't taken any formal action towards creating that guide, but certainly once we have the policies in place, then this is certainly something that we can work out. I know the building services staff have created a renovation guide to support conversions in existing single attached dwellings, and that can definitely be worked on with the planning piece now that once the zoning and OP policies are in effect, and this is accommodated on a much wider basis.
Great, thanks, Carl.
Councillor Dwyer.
Thank you. Just for information, and to Mayor Pankow's point, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing has already produced a kind of building code specific guide about what is required when you put a secondary or an accessory residential unit in ARU. And it walks you through whether or not you need fire separation, how many exits you need, the really kind of nitty gritty of the code components that are consistent across the entire province. So I highly recommend, if anybody is in the short term looking for a kind of tangible user guide, to check that out. It is available on their website just by searching accessory residential units, but hopefully the building department can also print some copies and have them available at the counter.
Thank you. Anyone else? No, this is a major piece of work, Mr. Grenke, and to adopt what the province has mandated and overlay it with what our community needs. So I appreciate all the work that your staff has done, and I want to say that because we didn't let you rest on your laurels for very long, where we've got another job for you, which is to get that education tool out. So congratulations, and you have no lack of work to continue to push this forward. Thank you, Carl. Anybody else? Okay. So then, thanks, Carl. The 8.5 then, oh, sorry. What is the consensus from council? I saw thumbs earlier, so I think I read it right. Perfect. You have your direction, Mr. Granke. Okay, 8.5 is street naming Bellamy Farm Phase 2, and that is also with Mr. Granke. So just keep talking, Carl.
Thank you. Staff are bringing for council's direction and approval 2 proposed street names for the new Bellamy Farm subdivision. As council will recall, the subdivision's approval earlier this year is a new subdivision approval that replaced a previous plan that was draft approved for these lands. And through this new approval, the developers identified 2 new street names that would apply to the new roads going in the first phase. The town had adopted a street naming policy in 2014, which is the guide by which staff evaluated the proposed street names when they were formally presented by Parkview. The staff report outlines the rationale by the developer in requesting these names at this time, and they were presented for internal and external review based on the process outlined in the policy, as well as public publication. The policy also outlined which street names should be avoided. In this case, there were no objections or concerns raised. The policy also outlines a number of names that have been pre-approved by council for new streets, which include names of people of historical significance in the town. The policy allows council to add and remove names from the list at any time. In this case, the developer was advised the proposed names are not on the pre-approved list. However, they could ask and rationalize the proposed names, which is what they have done. Through the review of the proposal, it was identified that the municipality had identified in the past a desire to include Graham as a future street name, and the developer outlined an openness to doing that in a subsequent phase if council would like. If council is supportive of Fern and Wesley as new street names, council can adopt a bylaw amending the street name bylaw to add those to the approved street names list for inclusion in the Bellamy Farm subdivision. At this time, Parkview is seeking approval for just these 2 names associated with this first phase. The developers will be coming back to council again later for approval for 2 or 3 new street names in the second phase. Thank you.
Thank you. And I saw Councillor McGuire first, and then Councillor Allen.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks a lot, Carl. I'd prefer to see the names come from the approved list. But that being said, I think the list is a little bit problematic and it's probably time to give it a review. So I'm wondering if we could send that to the MHC to give it a look over. I'm wondering, I understand of naming a street Graham to make up for the street that was named Air Care, but I don't believe Air Care exists anymore. So would it make more sense to just name that back Graham and not name any more streets after companies? I guess that's my question, and I would go with option 2. I support option 2.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Allen?
Yeah, Madam Chair. I read this over carefully, and I'm familiar with this because I've been involved with this over the years. But Wesley Park Street, or it was Wesley Way, and then I read all of that. It was interesting why the way wouldn't work. But I understand then that will run along a park. Is that correct, Carl?
Go ahead, Carl.
The south end, the south end of the street would intersect with the proposed Fern Crescent, at which point there would be a park at the end of the proposed Wesley.
So that makes sense to call it Wesley Park then, that park, if it's on Wesley. I thought that was a good idea.
Okay, and so Councillor Allen, are you picking option 1?
Yes.
We adopt Fern and Wesley? Okay. Councillor Dwyer.
Okay, so I want to provide a little bit of context first. So when the street naming policy was adopted in 2014, it was done so with public consultation about what those names on that list would look like. And a large part of that work came from a research project that was undertaken by Blake Seward's history class at the high school. And the idea was that we have so few names in town for new streets, that we needed to have some sort of basis to start making lifelong decisions when we made naming dedication policies for the town. And that wasn't just street names, it was something generally that could be applied everywhere. And at that time, because it was the 100th anniversary coming up of World War I, the town thought it was appropriate to start looking forward to commemorating that in a really meaningful way. I can appreciate that the developer is making a major investment in the community, and that they should have every participation of the names. But I think that those names need to come from the community itself. And I think given that we have already undertaken this research, that it has been adopted and sanctioned by council, I think it's only fitting that the developer select a name off that list. And again, there is a selection process. They have some freedom to select something that they think is appropriate and be able to justify why. But I think that it should come from the local community. You know, I went to the city of Ottawa today, and as I was driving through a community that I was not familiar with, I was looking at the street names, and they were placeless. They were streets that could exist in any community because they had no connection to the local community. And in particular, the one street that I ended up on was Silver Fox Way, which I thought was so strange because there are no silver foxes, at least not in the animal kingdom in Ottawa. So I'm adamant that if we're going to approve street names in the subdivision, they should be locally and contextually appropriate, and they should come from the research that has already been done to try and create some semblance of history in our community. And I very, very firmly stand behind that. So I would suggest that we go with, I think it's option 2, to send it back to the developer and ask them to select a name off the list.
Thank you. And I saw Councillor Brennan next, and then Mayor Panko.
Yeah, Silver Fox Way is named after my old boss. Just joking. I agree with Councillor Dwyer and Councillor McGuire. And I've been approached by people about getting a street named, and there is a process. I've given the information to them. I don't think they followed up, but you know, and I gotta thank Parkview for their investment in town, but a lot of these people that are moving in there are coming from outside of the community, and so if they, you know, if there's a name that we've chosen and the people move in, they'll be like, why is it named? I'll just Whitcomb. That's the first name on the list. So there's a reason for that, and that puts a connection to the community for the people that move in. And with all due respect, I'm going to certainly support option 2 here.
Thank you. And Mayor Panko.
Thank you. And I appreciate the rationale behind Parkview's suggestion for the names, and they would sound nice, but I agree with what's been said by the majority of my colleagues here, and Councillor Dwyer, thank you for taking us back to 2014 when we went through this entire process. And I too have had citizens mention to me at different times over the last number of years, well, how do we get a street name in town? And well, we do have a policy. And I think to deviate from that policy at this stage would be inappropriate. And I think I agree with the colleagues that suggest that we have a list, we have a policy, and these are people who were added to this policy after great consideration. So I would prefer option 2.
Thank you. And Councillor McKenna, did you want to weigh in?
Well, I was neutral on this going in, but I'm really impressed, Madam Chair, by my colleagues' thoughtful comments, and certainly I agree with them. So I'm fine with option 2, and I would add as a footnote to my comments that rather than just Graham, if we ever get there, I would prefer to see it Margaret Graham Street, to be very, very specific, as the first woman councillor of our town. So I appreciate the other Grahams, and they're all wonderful, but I would prefer that it be called Margaret Graham. So thank you.
And back to you, Councillor McGuire.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So just going back to the idea of sending this to the MHC for comment, I'm thinking there's two things here. One are some of the justifications need some tightening up. Two is there's definitely names missing from this list. And then the third consideration could be kind of sorting names for based on the accomplishment of the person or based on the what they've done in the town, because I wouldn't want to have Agnes Crane Lane or Gate, or some of these names deserve some bigger roadways. So I'm wondering, is there appetite for that, or are we content with the current policy?
I have a Councillor Dwyer, and then I'll make a comment.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I mean, I don't mind if it goes back to the MHC and they provide additional names. I'd worry about, assigning a hierarchy, because I think there does need to be some freedom in selection. And I think ultimately, the determination of whether or not that particular name is fitting for that particular asset is the call of council, and as it should be. So if the MHC wants to provide additional names for the list, I think that's great. But beyond that, I don't know that there's much need.
Yeah, and I would agree. I don't think it has to go through the MHC, and that would not be my option. But I look at this list, and I knew some of these people. Some of us knew some of these people. Jack Rabb would be one that would be a favorite of mine. I agree with Councillor McKenna about our first female councillor and the contributions of Agnes Crane and some of these other people. I do so as well appreciate the investment that Parkview has made in Smiths Falls, but they will eventually move on and we will all still be here. And these names need to be meaningful and need to have a story. As Councillor Dwyer pointed out, I think it is very important, and I would prefer if the developers want to pick one from the approved list. I guess that would be okay, but I would prefer, my preference would be is that the town decides what its streets names are and will be, and whatever that process is. So I think I see firmly that option 2 is the pick. I'm just going back, sorry, to the recommendations. Option 2 is that council direct the naming of the two new local streets forming part of Bellamy Farm subdivision be named from the approved street names list with appropriate suffixes. And I think that is the consensus of council. With regard to the street naming policy, the bylaw itself, I went looking for it online. I couldn't find the bylaw itself, 8668-2014, because I wanted to read it. But I think Carl's given us enough context. Is there anything, council? Yes, option 2, that is there any other addendums to this recommendation that we want to add to it? No, so we'll go, fine. Okay, sorry, Carl, go ahead.
Just to confirm my direction, Councillor. So I think certainly the direction of council is to pick 2 names off of the from the list. So I'm just looking to confirm council's direction. Is that do I ask Parkview? Do I provide and ask the developer to pick 2 names from the list and then bring those back to council for approval, or would
I didn't interpret that as the direction, is that the town would decide what the 2 new streets would be named. Am I correct, colleagues? And I saw Mr. Morris's hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Carl asked the question that was lingering in my mind.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you. And I saw Mr. McKenna.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we could certainly take the list back to Parkview and ask them, for some ideas. You don't need to say, we'll tell you what it is. It could be a conversation, but we'll bring it to that. We'll have the final say.
Well, I certainly, yes, Mayor Panko.
That's sort of my point. Present them with the list, maybe have them pick 3 or 4 names as potential, as their favorites. It's ultimately our decision at the end. So I guess I'm fine with them having a role in the selection process.
Yes, Councillor Brennan.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's going to be the list here is full of people, as you said, that we know or have known or know of. So it gets to be pretty subjective about who or who not is going to be named. So, but I'm fine with having Parkview have a look at the list, and there's actually a background for every one of them, so they know who they are, what they are, and then we can discuss it from there. But it's a tough decision, and as I said, it's very subjective, and everyone's got their opinion, and I think they're all good. So, but I'm
Okay,
fine with
so-
Parkview suggestions.
So staff will go back and see if, knowing once the Parkview people know what the stories are behind some of these, and let them have some input as to which one, which 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever that they lean towards. Is that fair, Mayor Panko?
Yeah, the only thing I'm going to throw out there is there are 2 names on the list whose widows are still with us. That it may be nice to have an involvement when there is somebody still alive to be part of a celebration. But anyway, just for consideration.
Yes, and Carl, you can, if you need any help with some of the history of those names, I'm sure councillors that are current can help. Okay, so you have your direction then, Mr. Grinke?
I do. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, lastly, tonight for priority items is the automobile extrication equipment, and we are going to ask Chief Cheeseborough to return.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The report tonight regarding the purchase of the auto extrication equipment. My recommendation is that the council, the Corporation Town of Smith Falls, approves the purchase of the auto extrication equipment from Darge Fire in the amount of $57,335 plus the net HST for a total of $58,344.09. The report seeks approval to purchase a complete set of heavy auto extrication equipment to replace the existing used set that is over 20 years old and does not meet our current or future needs. For the background, 6 years ago, the fire department purchased a used partial set of used extrication equipment to meet the needs at that time. Moving forward, there's been significant changes to vehicles designs and heavy equipment designs that have limited the ability for the older equipment to meet the new challenges. In October, we issued an RFQ requesting quotations for the equipment. Included in the RFQ was a requirement for each interested supplier to attend the fire hall and conduct a presentation on the equipment and allow the firefighters to conduct a training session. At the conclusion of the training session, the firefighters completed a survey identifying the benefits and the limitations of each supplier's equipment. The RFQ also provided each supplier the opportunity to quote on e-hydraulics, electric hydraulics, in their demonstration and their quotation. Following the demonstration, one supplier withdrew their quote as they could not fulfill the requirements as laid out in the original RFQ. Only one of the 2 remaining suppliers attended the demonstration and training. After a review of the firefighters' assessment and the criteria listed in the RFQ, one supplier was able to meet or exceed the requirements. We also identified the need to move the electric hydraulics. This reduces the amount of equipment needed by eliminating gas-powered pumps, hydraulic hoses, maintenance, associated fuel costs with the equipment. It also falls within our cancer prevention program that has been established within the fire department. And this will allow the fire service to contribute to a greener operation by reducing our carbon footprint. In conducting the analysis and the options, we've listed the 2 vendors that did keep their quotations in, one from AJ Stone and one from Darch. Attached in the report is the breakdown of the dollar value for each of those. So in option 1 is to accept and approve the recommendation as presented for the battery operated hydraulics, which promotes to a greener operation, provides easy deployment and accessibility into confined areas, using the electric hydraulics can be taken into buildings, whether it's a construction site or in a house, if there's a collapse, and certainly is not going to create any greater hazard than that's already there. Option 2 is to approve the lower quote for the battery operated hydraulics that did not meet the criteria laid out in the RFQ. And the final option was to approve approve the quote for the gas powered hydraulics from DART, which does meet our desired equipment requirements, but does not meet our desire to move to a greener operation. The budget and financial implications, I did have a discussion with our treasurer regarding the amount. The amount had been budgeted in the 2021 budget was $45,000. The recommendation for option 1 exceeds that budget line item for extrication equipment. But in discussions with the treasurer, we noted that the purchase of the recent SCBA equipment came in under budget by $13,386. The balance of the amount would be $13,344, which could be funded from the capital reserve. In reviewing the firefighters' testing of the equipment, and unfortunately, there was only the one supplier that stayed in with their quotation was able to provide that. This is recognized equipment that's used universally. I know Lanark County was looking into the electric hydraulics. That seems to be the way that the industry is moving towards. It certainly promotes a safer operation. It's less labor intensive and provides a greater flexibility with regards to extrication equipment. And as we know, when we're dealing with extrication, time is of the essence. So any delays in connecting or moving, or if it happened to be, God forbid, a vehicle 200 feet off the road in the field, it just takes that much longer to move more equipment out there and to set it up and get established before we can perform this. So again, Madam Chair, we've gone through the existing procurement policy and have had consultations with both the fire service staff as well as Treasurer Koziel.
Thank you, Chief. Any, yes, Mayor Panko?
Yeah, thanks, Chief Cheeseborough. And I had a number of questions through your discussion, and you kept answering them with your commentary. And obviously, this makes so much sense, as you mentioned, like lighter, easier, more mobile and portable, and less maintenance, and all the reasons to invest more. Not to mention the green factor, but I guess question. No, I assume, is this 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units? Is this, how many batteries are involved? What's the what's the length of time a battery will deploy a unit? How quickly do they charge and things like that? I mean, I'm sure this is all developed for this purpose, extremely powerful, and but just a couple of questions there.
Through the chair, thank you, Your Worship. There is a battery that comes with each of the pieces of equipment. So there is a hydraulic spreader, a hydraulic cutter, a hydraulic ram, a set of 3 airbags that can lift up to 60 tons when combined, which are air operated. There is a spare battery that comes with each, along with the charger. The charging of the batteries, or the use of the batteries, I should say, depending on what you're cutting or what you're spreading, ranges anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour up to 3.5 hours of use on a single charge battery. Further, that I didn't include in this because I wasn't quite sure, I've never experienced it. This unit can be used underwater. It has no effect. It's a sealed unit. So if you had an extrication call with a vehicle upside down and it partially submerged, it could be used in that. The life expectancy, they did not provide a life expectancy. However, speaking with departments that do have these in use, they have yet to replace a battery and have had them anywhere between 5 and 10 years. They will also provide 48 hours turnaround should something happen to a piece of equipment. They will either drop off or ship to us. We'll receive in 48 hours a loaner piece of equipment. No charge for the loaner, no charge for the shipping. So it's they're a very well-established organization and continuously adapting their equipment to meet our needs and certainly the future needs.
Sounds like a great investment. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor McKenna?
Thank you, Chief, and I too support the recommendation. I did have a question regarding the explosive growth in electric cars or electric vehicles. And I recently, and you're more familiar with this than I am, but there are some issues with electric vehicle fires that are much more complicated than traditional vehicle fires, I understand. And I wanted to also understand are you aware of any particular extrication issues related to electric vehicles versus our traditional vehicles?
Through the chair, an excellent question. In my career, I've had the opportunity to take a 6-hour training course along with other members of the fire department. And electric vehicles are more dangerous than your conventional vehicle. They have a cable that runs from either the rear seat or the trunk up to the front of the vehicle that's identified. And should that cable be cut during an extrication, could result in immediate death or electrocution. The battery that's contained in the back of the vehicle, the firefighters doing the extrication have to be trained in how to deactivate the battery. In most North American vehicles, once the cell is removed from the center, it's automatically deactivated. Some of the foreign vehicles, it could take up to 20 minutes for deactivation. With regards to the electric vehicles, if they're partially submerged, the instruction is you wait till the water stops bubbling before the system has shorted out. So there are some very unique challenges with that. There's only certain mechanics that can work on these vehicles, and there is special training that is required to adapt the fire service or emergency responders to it. They're very hazardous, but once you have been trained on that and have the knowledge to deal with those, it certainly reduces the amount of risk, but they're inherently dangerous from the get-go.
If I may, Madam Chair, where I was going with that, Chief, is this equipment that you're buying, it was a consideration. It doesn't make it worse. It's been considered in the purchase that the growing electrical vehicle is where you're going to be working. So I still support the recommendation.
Correct. I'm sorry, through the chair, this new equipment is more than compatible to deal with the extrication on it. It doesn't contribute to any greater hazard. In fact, it provides a greater stability for the user than the gas powered and the hoses reaching out across the vehicle.
Thank you. And do we have consensus to move forward with this with the chief? And if I'm ever upside down and underwater, Chief, I'd like to know that you have that thing. So
we'd be on our way, Madam Chair.
You have your direction.
Thank you.
And that brings us, I believe, to the end of the all cows for 2021. Congratulations, we got this far. I will hear a motion to adjourn, that the committee adjourn its proceedings at, let me check, 6:38, and stand so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of council. Moved by Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor Dwyer. All those in favor. We will take a 5-minute break while our deputy clerk gets ready for the council meeting. Thank you all.
Sorry, did you just see your text here, 7-1?
Yeah, I see that Sean has us moved into our, oh, there you are. Sorry, Mayor Pinko. Yes, we do have a screen on the up right now just saying that we will resume shortly. So if you want to go ahead and seek the seconders.
Yeah, I've got all the names down here first and then.
Sure. I texted all the items to each member on your phone. If you want, I can call it out as well, whatever's easiest.
Yeah, right here, 7-3.
And just to note that even though we're not visual, we are live with audio. So just to note that. Thank you.
Hello? I don't see anybody.
It's okay. We just have a screen up, but our audio is still live.
Okay.
I just texted out the who would be moving each motion. So if you want to check your phone.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. Well, go through the list here. Is Lorraine back?
Yeah, she's there.
Lorraine, you have 7.1, you seconder?
Second is Chris.
Okay. And Chris, who's your seconder for 7.2?
Lorraine, do you want to?
Yeah.
Okay, do each other a favor. Peter, you have 7.3, your seconder?
Yeah, either Jay or Wendy, they're on the planning committee, so.
Yes, and I put Peter down for 7.4 and I'll take his 7.3.
Okay.
Seven fives off the table, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Nikki for 8.1. No, Nikki's back. Jay for 8.2.
I'll say Jay.
Oh, okay.
I'll
Jay,
take
will you
Nikki.
second mine?
If you second mine.
Sure.
There, perfect.
Okay.
And adjournment, who wants to second the final adjournment of 2022? Nikki's.
2021.
Oh, sorry, 21.
Wishful thinking.
Okay.
Okay, we'll just. All right. So Mayor Pinko, if you're ready, I can count us into this meeting.
Yes. Piece of history on me here. Okay. Ready to
All
roll.
right. Great. All right, we will go live in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, everyone, for the special meeting of Smith Falls Town Council for Monday, December 20th. I'll start the meeting with our land acknowledgement. On December 20th, 2021, we acknowledge that the sacred land in which Smith Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and has rich and indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We're also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in the making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smith Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all the relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawn on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. So I'll call the meeting to order. And as we enter the second consecutive Christmas with public health restrictions limiting our holiday festivities, I hope our community can once again unite with a renewed sense of kindness and understanding. We're all frustrated with yet another round of public health protocols that will prevent us from celebrating Christmas, New Year's in ways that we envisioned and in many cases had planned for just a few days ago. We all yearn to spend these special times with our loved ones, and we all had high hopes that this is possible until last week. Now, of course, our public health officials and our governments are asking us once again to bear down and do what's best for our country, our community, our families, and of course ourselves. And although there is still much to be learned about Omicron, and there may be a possibility it may not be as deadly or debilitating as other variations of COVID-19, we really don't know. And as we have in the past, when confronted with something we don't understand, we must turn to those that have the education, experience, and wisdom that we seek, and we must listen to their advice. So once again, we must adjust our lives, follow the direction of our public health officials, and look ahead to brighter days in 2022. At the same time, we all need to remember that the difficulties most of us face are extremely modest compared to what our friends in healthcare have endured since the start of this pandemic. They've carried a very heavy burden, and at times they've done so despite the backlash of perhaps some less caring, less understanding members of our public. So let us remember the challenges faced by our retail workers, who we're seeing quite frequently these days, who are often dealing with rude and inconsiderate members of our public. These people continue to do their jobs despite what we all see as unacceptable behavior of others from time to time. So let us approach this Christmas season with better patience, greater understanding, and renewed commitment to kindness. In other words, please treat others as you'd like to be treated, and let the spirit of Christmas season shine brightly. I'll ask for disclosure of monetary interest. I see none. We have no delegations. We have no adoption of minutes. Reports. Any reports this evening? Councillor Alford, sorry.
Just one, Your Worship. I know it's been announced on Facebook, but just to let council know that the Smiths Falls District Chamber of Commerce and the Smiths Falls Downtown Business Association were successful in a grant to fund the Main Street Ambassador as part of an accelerator program by the economic developers of Ontario. That means they will be hiring a full-time one-year contract starting in mid-January, and people can apply for that. This is part of it's very like the Digital Main Street was, and that was a very successful program here in Smiths Falls. And this is another way in which the federal government, in this particular case, is trying to stimulate downtowns. And this is, they will look at several issues with regard to how they can, this ambassador will, in consultation with our business community downtown, and hopefully stimulate more avenues for them and identify what needs they might have and what directions they can take. As I said, this is a feather in the cap of both of those organizations to get this grant, and I applaud the work that goes into some of these things is extensive. So just to let people know that both the DBA and the Chamber were successful in their joint application for the ambassador program.
Great, thank you. Councillor Allen, you had your hand up as well.
It's just one quick one, Your Worship. On behalf of the Arts and Culture Council Board, I'd like to thank Director Manhire. He met with an artist, Lee Hicks, and myself, and we're in the process of, he's creating a hanging board. I'm not quite sure if it has a name, but it's going to allow different artists when they're highlighting their art to hang their paintings at different heights. So the front foyer of the town hall will be animated with beautiful pieces of art. The first one being Leah Hicks. So we're hoping it may not be December, it may be January, but Director Manhire said that he would be installing those for us. So just watch for that. That's coming up.
That's great. We have some incredible local talent. We'll all have an opportunity to see more of the work. Anything further? Okay, we'll move right into our bylaws. Back to you, Councillor Allen.
Yes, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McGuire, bylaw to authorize execution of a community grants funding agreement with the Railway Museum of Eastern Ontario, bylaw 10292-2021. Bylaw to authorize community with the Railway Museum be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Allen, second by Councillor McGuire, that a bylaw to authorize execution of a community grants funding agreement with the Railway Museum of Eastern Ontario be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Discussion, Councillor Allen?
Yes, we did the research and I interviewed and chatted with 4 different groups that help with strategic planning for museums. And the one that we're going to choose, it includes 2 full days with our board member. It's going to also include working with our town, interviewing and getting surveys and getting feedback from citizens on how they'd like to see the museum implement the strategic plan. And it should last us 5 years, we're hoping. So we're very excited to start that, and we're appreciative of having the money to be able to do so. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Any further comments? May the third reading, please.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McGuire that a bylaw to authorize execution of a community grants funding agreement with the Railway Museum of Eastern Ontario be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed and numbered 10292-2021.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Allen, second by Councillor McGuire. The bylaw to authorize execution of a community grants funding agreement with the Railway Museum of Eastern Ontario be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed and numbered 10292-2021. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Councillor McGuire, you're up next.
Your worship, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Allen that a bylaw to authorize execution of a transfer payment agreement with the Canada Community Revitalization Fund be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McGuire, second by Councillor Allen, a bylaw to authorize execution of a transfer payment agreement with the Canada Community Revitalization Fund be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Discussion, Councillor McGuire?
Yeah, your worship, this is a great news story for us. We've got funds for up to $750,000 for the redevelopment of the town square. This will be able to be combined with the previous ICIP funding. And when we consider the donation that we have for this space, it's looking like all the costs will be covered by grants or donations. So exciting to have the project move forward. The designs are expected to be completed in January. And big thanks to Director Manhire for moving the project forward.
Great. Thank you. Any further discussion? May I have a third reading, please?
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Allen that a bylaw to authorize execution of a transfer payment agreement with the Canada Community Revitalization Fund be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed and numbered 10293-2021.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McGuire, seconded by Councillor Allen, a bylaw to authorize execution of a transfer payment agreement with the Canada Community Revitalization Fund be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed and numbered 10293-2021. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Councillor McKenna, you get the next bylaw.
Yes, thank you. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Alford, that a bylaw to amend bylaw 8750-2014, being a bylaw to adopt the town of Smith Falls official plan, be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McKenna, second by Councillor Alford, that a bylaw to amend bylaw 8750-2014, being a bylaw to adopt the town of Smith Falls official plan, be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Discussion, Councillor McKenna?
Yes, thank you. The Housing Task Force in Smith Falls last year brought forward a recommendation that the town consider amending its bylaw, its official plan, to allow for, I guess, secondary units. It's not the technical name, but RU, I think Councillor Dwyer told me. And so it would allow homeowners in the town of Smith Falls, either single family homes, row houses or duplexes, to upgrade their homes to add another unit to help alleviate some of the housing pressures. So this was certainly supported by the province's change in legislation. And now the town of Smith Falls is amending our official plan to allow this sort of development. And we really do encourage people to take a close look at doing this.
Thank you. Any further discussion? May I have a third reading, please?
Yes, again, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Alford, that a bylaw to amend bylaw 8750-2014, being a bylaw to adopt the town of Smith Falls official plan, be now read a third time and finally passed, signed and sealed and numbered 10294-2021.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McKenna, second by Councillor Alford, that a bylaw to amend bylaw 8750-2014, being a bylaw to adopt the town of Smith Falls official plan, be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed and numbered 10294-2021. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And Councillor Alford, do you have our final bylaw?
I do, Your Worship, thank you. Moved by Councillor McKenna, moved by me, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 6084-94 be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Alford, second by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 6084-94 be received, read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? It's carried. Discussion, Councillor Alford?
This is the companion piece to the previous motion on the official plan. This is the zoning piece of it. And Councillor McKenna is right. This paves the way now for people to consider an accessory dwelling unit on their property.
Thank you. Any further discussion? May I have a third reading, please?
Yes, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 6084-94 be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed and numbered 10295-2021.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Alford, second by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 6084-94 be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed and numbered 10295-2021. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, that's it for our bylaws. We have a couple of motions. Going first to Councillor Dwyer, please.
Thank you, Mayor Pankow. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Brennan that the Council of the Corporation for the Town of Smith Falls cancel the request for proposal numbered 17-ED-03 respecting the redevelopment of the former water treatment plant, and further that resolution 2018-04-110 be hereby rescinded.
Thank you. Discussion, Councillor Dwyer?
Thank you, Mayor Pankow. The purpose of canceling the request for proposal is to allow us to go back out to public tender for an expression of interest to proponents who would be interested in moving forward with the redevelopment of the water treatment plant. This RFP was executed with the proponent, the lead proponent on this, Mr. Bruce Linton, in 2018. And since that time, Mr. Linton has conceptualized some ideas of what he would like to see on that site, but has not expressed a confirmed interest in being able to move that forward. So through consultation with Mr. Linton, the town has elected to cancel that previous tender and rescind the respective motion in the hopes that we will be able to find willing public partners to.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Moved by Councillor Dwyer, second by Councillor Brennan. The Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls canceled request for proposal 17-ED-03 respecting the redevelopment of the former water treatment plant, and further that resolution 2018-04-110 be hereby rescinded. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And our final motion of 2021, Councillor Brennan.
It's an honor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Dwyer, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls approve the purchase of auto extrication equipment from Dart Fire in the amount of $57,335 plus net HST for a total of $58,344.09.
Thank you. Discussion, please.
Yeah, Chief Cheeseborough gave us a report just a little while ago, and this is replacing equipment that is 20 years old. It's going to help save lives, and as an added bonus, it is green technology using electric rather than gas. So a great purchase, and it'll serve us for many years to come, I hope.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Moved by Councillor Brennan, second by Councillor Dwyer. The Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls approves a purchase of auto extrication equipment from Darsh Fire in the amount of $57,335 plus net HST for a total of $58,344.09. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Inquiries or announcements? I know we have one formality we have to do before we leave, but I'll turn to Councillor McKenna for announcement first.
If I could have one of each, Your Worship,
Sure.
an announcement. Certainly, Smith Falls swimmer Bailey Anderson just on the weekend competed in the World Championships swim meet in Abu Dhabi and had a very strong swim, just out of the medals, but we're all very proud of her and wish her a successful year in 2022. And my inquiry is for CEO Morris. If at the next strategic plan update, you've been providing them on a regular basis, and I really appreciate it. It's phenomenal, the work that staff are carrying out. On the next one, as well as the update, that just identifies the work that's happening in the strategic plan. Is it possible for Mr. Morris to provide all the other work that the staff do? So for example, I know we get the building permit application numbers and we get some of the other highlights. I'm just wondering if it's possible, as we reflect back in January or sometime in January, February, on the year that's just passed, the work on the strategic plan, as well as some of the highlights from staff of all the other amazing work that you do that we don't get to really talk about very much. I don't know if that could be in a brief summary, and I don't know if my colleagues agree. I guess want to celebrate, in spite of COVID, the remarkable efforts of our team Smith Falls in serving the residents. So I just wanted to put that request out the next time we get one.
CEO Morris? Yes, certainly.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, great question, and absolutely we can do that. In fact, we will be turning our thoughts in early January to our year-end annual report for 2021. So we will be compiling all of your accomplishments and staff accomplishments. So we can give you kind of a précis of that in January for sure. I should add the annual report doesn't usually become available publicly until late March, early April, because we wait until the financial audit is finished. But certainly we'll have a handle on accomplishments and we can share that with you.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not looking to add any extra work to CEO Morris or the staff. And if March, I can certainly wait. I just wanted to look broader than just the strategic plan and some of the other highlights. And I'm certainly quite willing to wait till March. Thank you.
Great point. Thank you. Okay, so this is Councillor Brennan.
Well, I had volunteered the last meeting to provide a Christmas trivia question, and I spent a lot of time this week working on it. If you recall, last year I had a question about Rudolph, and there was much controversy about who his father actually was, everyone from Donner to the mailman. But this question is related. I want to know, Mrs. Claus, what is her maiden name and her first name? So yes, and you know, there's many opinions, but the best one I could find And I would direct colleagues and their grandkids and everyone else to look up yessantaisreal.com for different stories. But the story of Mrs. Claus is the name Holly McBride in Washington, D.C. on Christmas Day, 1792. And, Santa Claus is much older than her, of course, but I think he had his eye on her for a while. They got married apparently on February 14th, which is Valentine's Day, of course, in 1815. And that would mean that they celebrated this year their 206th anniversary. So I tend to believe that story. Mrs. Claus did not come on the scene in terms of folklore until around that time of her birth. So I think that this website is, I believe in Santa Claus now. I've read it all and it's terrific stuff. So Merry Christmas, everybody.
Thank you, Jay, for sharing that Christmas wisdom and spirit. Okay, so we traditionally have always sung, and it precedes all of us on council, that we want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. And now I know when we did it last year, we may recall it was a mess, because I think with the Zoom format, we were all at different timing, and it didn't sound great, but I think the intention was good. And I'd like to see everyone's mic on, especially those who can sing better than me, which would be all.
Maybe we should all sing it on mute.
On mute, yeah. Councillor Dwyer, your lights turn on. There we go. All right. Okay.
Councillor McGuire and Councillor McKenna's mics. Oh, there. Councillor McGuire, I think you got away with this last year.
Yes.
Have your mic off.
Okay.
There you go.
Councillor McGuire, as I know you are probably the most experienced performer here. I'll have you lead the way with our annual.
We tried this last year. This didn't work. We're all on different delays. I think the mayor needs to just do a solo this year.
Oh, no. If we're gonna do a solo, it'll be you. So let's, okay, count us in. We'll do our best.
One for all and all for one. Let's just get it over with,
Yeah.
please. Go ahead, Chris. Come on. We wish you a Merry Christmas.
We wish you a
Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas.
And a Happy
New Year. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Oh, we do have to adjourn. We do have to adjourn. Sorry.
Oh, sorry about that, people.
Yeah. Okay. Motion for adjournment, Councillor McKenna.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McGuire from the choir, that this council adjourn its proceedings at 7:10 and stand so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of council.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McKenna, second by Councillor McGuire. This council adjourns proceedings at 7:10 p.m. and stands so adjourned to the next duly called meeting of council. All in favor? We are adjourned. Okay.
See you next year.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.